Ladies and gentlemen, there is something profoundly powerful about love. It is the language of the heart, the melody of connection, the force that binds souls together. But what happens when the song of love is drowned out by the noise of pain, disrespect, and silent suffering? What happens when you begin to lose pieces of yourself in the name of staying connected? You see, love is not supposed to break you. It is not supposed to silence your laughter, dim your light, or turn your vibrant spirit into a quiet shadow. A relationship is meant to be a sacred space where you feel safe, seen, heard, and valued. It should be a garden where your soul grows, not a battlefield where your self-worth dies. But far too often, in the name of patience or sacrifice, we begin to accept what should never be accepted. Today, I want to speak to you from the depths of truth and courage. Today, I want to remind you of 5 behaviors you should never tolerate in a relationship, because no connection is worth losing yourself. Consistent disrespect. There's a certain kind of silence that follows repeated disrespect. It's not the silence of peace, it's the silence of someone who's slowly becoming invisible. When you are consistently disrespected in a relationship, the damage isn't always loud, it's often quiet. It creeps into your soul like a slow shadow, dimming your confidence, dulling your joy, and slowly rewriting the story you tell yourself about your worth. In the beginning, you might laugh it off. A sarcastic comment here, a belittling joke there. You tell yourself it's not that serious. You try to be patient, you try to be understanding. You convince yourself that they didn't mean it, that you're just being too sensitive. But over time, those words don't just bounce off, they start to stick. They begin to echo in your mind long after the conversation ends. You start to shrink not physically, but emotionally. You question your choices, second-guess your feelings, hesitate before you speak. You wonder if your thoughts are too much, if your opinions are too strong. And before you know it, you're editing yourself in your own relationship. You're not being loved, you're being managed. And there's a deep ache in that realization. Disrespect doesn't always come in the form of raised voices or slammed doors. Sometimes it's the eye roll when you're speaking from your heart. Sometimes it's the way they scroll through their phone while you're trying to express your dreams. It's the way your excitement is met with disinterest, your concerns met with mockery, your emotions dismissed as drama. And every time it happens, you feel a little more alone. People often think that love will automatically bring respect, but love without respect is a cage made of illusion. Because even if someone says they love you, if they do not respect you, they will eventually destroy the very soul of who you are. Love without respect isn't nurturing, it's suffocating. It doesn't help you grow, it keeps you small so they can feel bigger. What's tragic is how long people stay in places where they are constantly disrespected, all in the name of loyalty. You start convincing yourself that loyalty means endurance, that staying quiet is strength, that bearing pain is a badge of love. But let me tell you, love does not ask you to abandon yourself. It never asks you to choose silence over dignity. Respect is not earned by tolerating mistreatment. It is claimed by knowing your worth. And when someone keeps showing you through their words and actions that they do not value you, the most courageous thing you can do is to stop pleading for kindness. Because true love never requires you to beg to be treated with basic decency. True love honors you loudly, consistently, wholeheartedly. Every time someone disrespects you and you say nothing, you are teaching them that their behavior is acceptable, and the longer you stay quiet, the more normal it becomes for them and for you. You slowly start redefining love by their standards, forgetting what you truly deserve. You mistake survival for love, endurance for devotion, and silence for peace. But peace is not the absence of argument. Sit is the presence of mutual understanding. It is when your heart feels safe, even in disagreement. When you know that your words will not be twisted, your feelings will not be mocked, your essence will not be dimmed, disrespect kills this peace. It poisons the well of connection and leaves you drinking from a cup of bitterness. You are not difficult for wanting respect. You are not high maintenance for expecting to be heard. You are not unloving for demanding to be seen. You are simply remembering that you are a human being with value. And that value should never be up for negotiation in any relationship, romantic, familial, or otherwise. Often, the hardest part is when the disrespect is subtle. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's hidden behind jokes, disguised as honesty, masked as just being real, but you can feel it. You feel it in the way your shoulders tense when they speak, in the way your smile fades when they laugh at you, not with you, in the way your spirit folds inwards when you try to open up. There is nothing noble about staying where you are constantly disrespected. It doesn't make you loyal, it makes you forgetful. Forgetful of your worth, forgetful of your voice, forgetful of the truth. That love should feel like warmth, not like walking through fire barefoot every single day. You deserve more than that. You were born for more than that. It takes courage to walk away, especially when your heart is still holding on to the potential of what could be. But sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for them is to stop accepting less. Because when you accept disrespect, you're not just hurting your teaching, you're showing them how to treat you. And eventually, how they treat you becomes how you treat yourself. So if you find yourself dimming your light to fit into someone else's darkness, remember this: respect is not optional. It is the foundation of love. Without it, everything else will crumble, no matter how beautiful it looks on the outside. Choose the kind of love that doesn't just say you matter, but shows it daily with words, actions, and unwavering presence. Emotional manipulation. There is a kind of pain that doesn't leave bruises, but leaves deep scars on the soul. It is the pain of being emotionally manipulated. When someone plays with your emotions, they don't just break your heart, they bend your mind. They make you feel like you're wrong for feeling, weak for needing, and selfish for asking. And the most dangerous part? You start believing them. You begin to doubt not just the relationship, but your own inner voice. Emotional manipulation doesn't walk in, wearing red flags. It enters softly, with affection, attention, and just enough love to keep you hooked. At first, it feels like care. I just want what's best for you. You're too good to be around them. I'm the only one who really understands you. And slowly, that care becomes control. That concern becomes criticism. That love becomes a leash. You wake up one day and realize you're no longer living for yourself. You're making every choice to avoid upsetting them. You tiptoe through conversations. You rehearse your truth in your head, only to never say it out loud. You start monitoring your tone, your tears, your truths, just to keep the peace. But what kind of peace requires you to disappear? Manipulation works because it confuses you. It makes you question your reality. You say, that hurt me. And they say, you're too sensitive. You say, I feel lonely. And they say, you're just overreacting. Every time you bring up your pain, they twist it until you are the problem. They don't take responsibility, they rewrite the narrative. And you begin to wonder if maybe they're right. The most heartbreaking part is how isolated you feel. Because you can't explain the manipulation to others easily. There are no loud fights, no visible wounds. Just this growing sense that you're not safe in your own feelings anymore. You look fine on the outside, but inside you're unraveling. You don't know where you end and they begin. You don't know which feelings are yours and which are planted by them. Emotional manipulation is silent erosion. It chips away at your strength. It replaces your instincts with their influence. It takes your clarity and turns it into confusion. And once you're confused, you're more easily controlled. You begin to believe that without them, you'd fall apart. That they are your anchor, your stability, your savior. But in truth, they're the storm you keep mistaking for shelter. You find yourself apologizing for everything, even your pain. You say sorry for being hurt, for being human, for speaking up. You even say sorry when you're the one who's been wronged. And every time you apologize for existing, you silence your spirit. You teach yourself that survival is more important than truth. That staying loved even manipulatively is better than being alone. But manipulation is not love. It is fear wearing the costume of affection. It is the cage built with sweet words and heavy silences. Love never silences your truth to protect its comfort. Love never dims your fire to stay in control. Love never uses your wounds as leverage. Manipulation does. And it thrives in the shadows where your voice is kept quiet. The truth is, manipulators are not strong. They are scared. Scared of losing control. Scared of being exposed. Scared of real intimacy. So they use emotional tactics to keep you close. Guilt, blame, denial, gaslighting. And the longer you stay, the more you forget who you were before them. But you were whole. You were vibrant. You were free. You are not crazy for feeling what you feel. You are not broken for needing clarity. You are not dramatic for wanting consistency. Your feelings are not liabilities. They are your compass. They guide you toward safety, toward honesty, toward freedom. And anyone who truly loves you will never ask you to abandon your compass to follow their map. Sometimes, healing from manipulation means starting over with yourself, rebuilding your relationship with your own instincts, learning to trust your gut again, reconnecting with the version of you who didn't need permission to feel, who didn't apologize for needing. And that takes time. But you are worth that time. Your peace is worth that patience. You do not need to beg for clarity. You do not need to earn the right to be respected. You do not need to work for emotional honesty. These are not luxuries. They are the basics of a real, loving relationship. You deserve someone who doesn't confuse your loyalty for submission, someone who doesn't use your kindness as a loophole for cruelty. When you walk away from emotional manipulation, you're not giving up on love. You are returning to love, the kind that starts with self-respect, the kind that says, I deserve better and I choose better. And even if your hands tremble, even if your heart breaks, a little choosing yourself in the face of manipulation is one of the bravest things you'll ever do. Because when you break free, you begin to remember. You remember your strength, you remember your voice, you remember what it feels like to breathe without fear, to speak without hesitation, to love without being controlled. And in that remembering, you risen not just from the ashes of a broken relationship, but into the power of your truth, lack of accountability. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being with someone who refuses to own their mistakes. A partner who deflects, denies, and blames instead of simply saying, I was wrong. That lack of accountability isn't just a flaw in their character, it becomes a burden on your spirit. It turns a relationship into a one-sided effort, where you are always trying to fix what you didn't break. At first, you don't notice it. The excuses seem reasonable. The explanations seem valid. You tell yourself, maybe I misunderstood. And each time something goes wrong, they have a reason, a story, a version that somehow makes you the one at fault. It starts small. A forgotten promise, a hurtful word, a broken boundary, and instead of an apology, you get a counterattack. You get silence. You get gaslighted into questioning your own memory. Over time, that pattern chips away at your clarity. You begin to doubt your emotions. You second-guess your recollection. You apologize just to end the argument. And slowly, you begin to accept a reality where your pain isn't valid unless they approve of it. A world where your emotions are on trial and they are both the judge and jury. Being in a relationship with someone who refuses to take accountability is like trying to walk forward while they're walking backward. You keep trying to meet them halfway, but every time you step closer, they take a step away from responsibility. You bring your truth, and they bring denial. You bring vulnerability, and they bring ego. And soon you're the only one carrying the weight of the healing. Accountability is not weakness, it is the strength to admit, I hurt you, and I'm willing to change. It is the humility to say, I was wrong, without turning it into, but you made me do it. Without accountability, apologies are empty and change is a performance. You begin to live in a cycle. Hurt, explain, forgive, repeat. And the worst part is, the more you forgive without change, the more they believe they don't need to change at all. You start doing emotional labor that doesn't belong to you. You start justifying their behavior to others. You start making excuses you don't even believe anymore. You silence your discomfort just to keep the peace. You stop bringing things up because you know how they'll react. Not with growth, not with awareness, but with defensiveness, with blame, with more pain. And in all of this, you begin to forget what mutual love feels like. Love where both people are growing, both people are honest, both people are responsible. You start to believe that maybe this is just what relationships are, compromise after compromise until you disappear. But relationships are not supposed to be battlegrounds of ego. They're meant to be spaces of shared responsibility, where two people learn, fall, apologize, and rise together. The tragedy of being with someone who never owns their mistakes is that eventually you start owning them for both of you. You start carrying double the emotional load. You convince yourself that maybe you just have to try harder, be more patient, be more understanding, but no amount of your patience can fix someone else's refusal to grow. You can't heal someone who won't admit they're hurting you. You can't change someone who believes they're always right. And you can't build a future with someone who refuses to look at the damage they're leaving in their past. Growth requires honesty, healing requires humility, love requires accountability. Without those things, what you have is not a relationship, it's an emotional burden disguised as love. There's so much power in those three words. I was wrong. They open the door to healing. They soften the walls of pride. They remind both people that love is not about perfection, it's about presence. It's about showing up, not just when things are easy, but especially when they're messy. Especially when your actions have caused pain. But when those words are never spoken, you begin to internalize that maybe you're always the one who's wrong. And that internalization is dangerous. It makes you question your intuition. It makes you doubt your boundaries. It makes you believe that love means carrying more than your share of the emotional weight. But you deserve better. You deserve a partner who meets you in the middle, who takes ownership, who tries. You deserve someone who, when they hurt you, doesn't try to escape the discomfort but sits in it, learns from it, grows from it. You deserve someone who says, I see the pain I've caused and I will do the work to change. Because love isn't in the perfect moments, it's in how we handle the imperfect ones. It's in how we hold each other accountable with compassion, not control. There's nothing weak about wanting accountability. It is not dramatic, it is not high maintenance, it is the foundation of safety. When someone cannot be trusted to own their part, how can they be trusted to protect your heart? You are not asking for too much, you are asking for the bare minimum. To be in a relationship with someone emotionally mature enough to say, I'm sorry, and I will do better. So if you are in a space where you are always apologizing, always explaining, always carrying the blame pause, ask yourself, is this love or is this survival? Is this partnership or is this self-sacrifice disguised as connection? Because real love doesn't let you carry the entire weight of both hearts. Real love shares the load, owns the mistakes, and rises stronger because of it. Control and isolation. There's a slow kind of breaking that happens when control disguises itself as care. It doesn't begin with loud orders, it starts with gentle suggestions. I just worry about you. That friend isn't good for you. Why don't you stay in tonight? And before you know it, a hand that once felt like protection starts feeling like a cage. What once felt like concern begins to suffocate. You don't realize it at first, but piece by piece, your world starts shrinking. Control is rarely loud in the beginning. It whispers, it manipulates. It coats itself in love, so it becomes harder to recognize. It comes disguised as attention, intense, persistent attention that feels like affection. But attention that demands exclusivity, that requires you to abandon your world to be worthy of theirs, is not love. It is control. And control never builds, it breaks. At first, you may feel flattered. They want all your time. They want to be with you every moment. They seem to care who you talk to, what you wear, where you go. It feels like passion, but passion should never cost you your freedom. Because what they call love becomes conditional. If you really loved me, you wouldn't need them. If you really loved me, you'd do what I ask. And slowly you stop recognizing yourself in the mirror. You look around one day and realize you're alone not by accident, but by design. Your friendships have faded. Your family feels distant. Your world has shrunk down to the size of one person, and they like it that way. They want to be your sun, your moon, your entire sky so that when they pull away, you have nothing left. Isolation isn't just a side effect of control, it is its most powerful weapon. What makes isolation so painful is not the absence of people, it's the absence of perspective. When your world becomes so small, you forget how much bigger life used to be. You forget how it felt to laugh freely, to speak your truth, to go places without permission. You forget what it felt like to be you before you were managed, measured, monitored. And even then, you still try to justify it. They just love me too much. They're just scared of losing me. You tell yourself that this intensity is proof of passion. But true love never requires your isolation. It never demands you cut ties, hide truths, or shrink your world to fit someone else's comfort. Love invites expansion, not confinement. Control creates an invisible prison, one where your choices are limited, your voice is silenced, and your spirit is quietly suffocating. And what makes this prison so cruel is that you're expected to smile through it, to say, I'm lucky, while your freedom slips away, to say, I'm fine, when every part of you is aching to breathe again. It is a beautiful looking bondage that becomes harder to escape the longer you stay. You may even start feeling guilty for wanting space, for wanting your friends back, for missing your family. You feel torn, like you're betraying your partner just by remembering who you were before them. But wanting your freedom doesn't make you ungrateful, it makes you human. Wanting your identity doesn't mean you're abandoning love, it means you're rescuing yourself from a version of love that was never real. True love doesn't control, it supports. It doesn't isolate, it encourages connection. It doesn't demand silence, it invites honesty. It allows you to have your own life while sharing one with someone else. Because the strongest relationships are not built on ownership, they are built on freedom, and anyone who loves you will want to see you bloom, not shrink. It takes so much strength to recognize control when it's wrapped in tenderness, to say, this doesn't feel right, even when no one else sees the cage. But deep down, you always know. You feel it in the hesitation when you answer their calls, in the fear when you ask for space, in the guilt when you do something just for yourself. Your body knows, your soul knows. It remembers freedom. You don't owe anyone your isolation. You don't have to trade your independence for love. You don't have to give up your connections to prove your devotion. You are allowed to exist fully, loudly, boldly, completely, even in love, especially in love. And if someone asks you to give that up, they're not loving you, they're limiting you. Control is never about your safety, it's about their fear. Fear of losing you, fear of not being enough, fear of your light shining too brightly without them. But you are not here to dim for someone else's comfort. You are here to glow, to connect, to live fully. And love that requires you to disappear is not love, it's emotional theft. You deserve a relationship where you can grow wide, not small. Where your independence is celebrated, not criticized. Where your friendships are respected, not resented. Where your life is still your own, even as you share it. Anything less is not love, it's control dressed in a romantic disguise. And if you're in a place right now where your wings feel clipped, where your voice feels quiet, where your spirit feels caged, know this. You are allowed to break free. You are allowed to reclaim your space. You are allowed to be whole, even if that means walking away from someone who only loved you in pieces, repeated broken promises. Promises are not just words, they are sacred threads of trust. When someone makes a promise to you, they're not just speaking, they're building a bridge between your hope and their intention. And every time they break that promise, a piece of that bridge collapses. Repeated broken promises aren't just about disappointment, they are about erosion. They erode your faith, your confidence, your ability to believe. It starts small, a plan that falls through, a call that never comes, a promise to change that ends in silence. You tell yourself it's okay. You make excuses for them. They're just busy. They didn't mean to. They'll do better next time. And you wait. You keep waiting. You cling to the hope that this time it will be different. But the apologies become a pattern. The promises become rehearsed. The hope becomes hollow. Eventually, you stop getting angry. Not because you've healed, but because you're numb. You stop expecting them to show up. You lower your standards just to avoid disappointment. You learn to carry the weight of consistency alone. You become your own anchor because the one who vowed to hold you up has let you down so many times, you've forgotten what reliability feels like. What hurts the most is not the broken promises themselves, it's the way they make you feel invisible, unseen, unworthy of effort. Every broken promise whispers, you don't matter enough. Every missed moment says, you're not a priority. And over time, those whispers become your inner voice. Not because they're true, but because they've been repeated so many times, they start to feel like truth. You begin to question yourself. Am I asking for too much? Am I being too sensitive? You minimize your needs. You tell yourself to stop being so emotional. You learn to silence the ache inside you, the ache that still remembers every time they said, I swear I'll do better, only to hurt you in the same way again. The pain doesn't just come from what they did, it comes from what they promised they wouldn't do. Consistency is love in action. It is what separates commitment from convenience. Anyone can make a promise in a moment of emotion, but the ones who care follow through even when it's hard. The ones who care don't make excuses, they make effort. Because to love someone is to show up, not just in grand gestures, but in quiet consistency, in daily devotion, in the simple act of keeping your word. When someone breaks a promise once, it's a mistake. When they break it twice, it's a choice. But when it over and over again, it becomes a pattern that speaks louder than any apology. And no amount of I love you can outweigh 1,000 times you've been let down. Love without consistency is like a house built on sand. It may stand for a while, but it cannot weather the storms. And still, your heart holds on. Because we don't just love who someone is, we love who they could be, who they told us they would become. We fall in love with the future they painted with promises, and that's the danger. Because hope is a beautiful thing, but misplaced hope can become a trap that keeps you waiting for a version of someone that may never arrive. You find yourself stuck between what you feel and what you know. You feel love, but you know it hurts. You feel loyalty, but you know it's one-sided. You feel history, but you know the future looks like more of the same. And in that tug of war between emotion and truth, you start losing yourself. You start forgetting that your needs matter too. That your heart is not meant to live on empty promises. You don't deserve to be someone's afterthought. You don't deserve to be told what you want to hear, just to be hurt in the same way again. You deserve follow-through. You deserve action that matches words. You deserve someone who understands that keeping a promise is not about perfection, it's about respect. It's about honoring your heart as sacred ground. And if you're still holding on to someone who keeps letting you down, ask yourself, what are you actually holding on to? Is it the love you havor, the love you hope to have? Are you loving them for who they are, for who they could be if they finally followed through? And are you willing to keep paying the price of disappointment just to stay close to potential? Letting go is never easy, especially when your heart is still full, but sometimes choosing yourself means choosing to stop waiting, choosing to stop hurting, choosing to believe that there is someone out there who won't need 1,000 chances to get it right. Someone whose word is not just a promise, it's a commitment, a truth, a steady place to rest your heart. You don't have to stay in a cycle that breaks your spirit. You are not a fool for hoping, but you are powerful when you finally say enough. Because the moment you stop settling for broken promises is the moment you start making a new one to yourself. A promise that you will no longer chase words. You will no longer wait for someone to see your worth. You will no longer live in the shadow of their potential. You will rise. You will reclaim your hope, not from someone else's lips, but from your own courage. You will find peace, not in their next apology, but in your own decision to walk away. And you will begin again, not with empty promises, but with a full heart, finally ready to receive the love that doesn't have to be begged for or waited on. In the end, you are not meant to shrink for love. Sometimes, the deepest heartbreak does not come from a sudden ending. It comes from the slow, silent disappearance of yourself within a relationship. It comes from tolerating behaviors that chip away at your soul one small piece at a time. Disrespect doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes It hides behind smiles, apologies, excuses, and promises. And if we're not careful, we begin to believe that this quiet suffering is part of love, but it isn't. Love is not meant to silence your voice. It's not meant to erase your friendships, your strength, your boundaries, or your light. Love is not control wrapped in concern. It is not manipulation hidden in apologies. It is not disrespect disguised as jokes. Love is not a cycle of broken promises stitched together with words that mean nothing when they're never honored. And it is certainly not a place where your worth is a question. You were not created to be small. You were not created to be tolerated. You were made to be cherished, protected, seen, and heard. You were made to stand tall in your truth, not bend backward to keep someone else comfortable. You were made to be loved out loud, without conditions, without games, without wounds that repeat. Real love does not demand your silence or your suffrage, it demands your freedom. There are behaviors in a relationship that no heart should ever have to endure. Disrespect, manipulation, control, lack of accountability, and broken promises, they are not signs of passion, they are signs of destruction. And the longer we tolerate them, the more we teach ourselves that pain is the price of connection. But you were never meant to pay for love with your peace. It takes strength to walk away. It takes courage to say, this is not enough for me. It takes self-respect to stop explaining your worth to someone who refuses to see it. You are not high maintenance for wanting kindness. You are not too emotional for needing consistency. You are not dramatic for asking to be respected. These are not luxuries. They are the foundation of love. You do not need to explain why you won't tolerate certain behaviors. Your boundary is your birthright. Your peace is your responsibility. Your healing is your sacred duty. Letting go of what hurts you is not selfish. It is how you reclaim your soul. It is how you say to the universe, I am ready for more. I am ready for better. I am ready to love myself the way I've always wanted someone else to. Don't let anyone convince you that enduring pain is a measure of loyalty. Loyalty does not require you to bleed. Love is not built on wounds. It's built on respect, empathy, mutual effort, and shared growth. And if someone cannot meet you there, then your silence, your endurance, your sacrifice will never turn them into the person you deserve. You have the right to walk away from anything that makes you feel small. You have the right to stop tolerating what breaks your spirit. You have the right to begin again, stronger, wiser, braver. And in that beginning, you will realize that the greatest love of your life was never someone else. It was the love you learned to give yourself when you finally decide that enough is enough. So, to anyone listening who's been holding on, waiting, hoping, hurting, this is your sign, this is your permission, this is your moment. You are allowed to let go of what no longer serves you. You are allowed to demand better. You are allowed to walk away from anything that does not see, hear, and honor the powerful, beautiful, worthy soul that you are. Because you deserve a love that doesn't require you to shrink. You deserve a love that allows you to grow. You deserve a love that feels like home and not like a battlefield. And that love begins with you. Always with you.